Hi everyone, behind me you see my new 20 nukes that I made, or 20 splits I made about 3.5 weeks ago. Basically this is what's left of the 8 colonies I had here that I built up with my weakest colonies, and I do have those colonies still, but I did break them way down, and I didn't have quite enough brood to make these up, but I did have enough to do 18, and I had to do something a little bit different. But I set these up 3.5 weeks ago. I haven't messed with them since then, except with the exception of about 2 days after I first put them up. And as I stored all this, I kind of had to do something different that I've never done before to make this work. And once we get through this and I check to see that all these queens took, and I'll tell you what I've done this year to make this work out. Something I never really dreamed of doing. It was just a spur of the moment thing that I tried. Let's get started and see if all these took. So here's the first of our nukes. I did put a frame of foundation in each one of them, and they have pretty much drawn this one totally out. Well, they've actually got some bee bread stored in here, but I don't see no pollen yet, or don't see any brood yet. Well, we do have brood. There's some cap brood. This frame's full of brood, so this colony here is good shape. Yeah, and I can see a good amount of cap brood on that one. So this colony's took its queen. As a matter of fact, there she is right there on the top. Beautiful black. These are New World Carniolan queens, by the way. I've really had good luck with the Carniolans. I really like the bee. Takes a little getting used to their slow spring buildup, but once they kick it in gear, they come in a hurry. So that nuke's good. Got good weight to it. So this one don't have as many bees. They've drew out about almost half of this one frame of foundation here. And there's cap brood right there, so I don't need to go any further. So that's 2 of them that's took. Well, I had to pause you for a few minutes. Had some bush hogging right there not far away, and it was just overpoweringly loud, but the bush hogging is over. But so far I've checked 7, and I'm 7 for 7 so far. And waiting this long, it actually is kind of making it easy to confirm, because I'm just having to look for cap brood. And immediately I see cap brood right there, so now all it's left for me to do is just pull this queen cage out and put it back together. So far I've had one that's a little weak, but the rest of them's pretty strong. These nukes are already quite a bit ahead of the ones I made at the end of July last year. So here's one that ain't quite took all of its syrup, so this one may be in trouble. Well, there's brood in here, but it's not a very good pattern. So this queen is, to this point, is not doing a very good job. So that's a very spotty pattern. Of course, there's quite a bit of nectar and syrup in there, but they've not consumed all their bucket. It's the only one that has it to this point. I'll monitor it a little bit to see what happens. If it hasn't improved in a couple of weeks, I may go ahead and requeen it with one of the new queens I got coming in. But if this would have been queenless, I would have just simply go ahead and stack it on top of one of these other ones here. So I'm going to turn my brick a different direction. That's going to let me know I need to check this one a little bit closer down the road. But when you make splits like this or whatever, you requeen, or I've noticed if they don't take their syrup good, there's probably an issue with the queen, or it's really, really weak. So I see cap brood here. This one's in good shape, and their bucket was empty, so I don't need to go any further with this one. So far we've got 10 out of 10, and 9 out of the 10 are in really good shape. I got one that does have a queen, but she's not doing too good. So you kind of can see what I'm doing. I'm not really pulling any frames. I did on the first couple, but if I can see the cap brood, I'm not. So I'm just going to pause it out, and I'll check these other 10, and I'll let you know the results. and then I'll tell you what I did in this situation that's new to me. So I've just got through checking all 20 of these, and amazingly, to my surprise, all 20 of them has taken, all 20 of them has cap brood. I do have one with a poor performing queen, the one with the break turned up, but I'm really excited with the way this turned out. And now to tell you what I've done here, it was nothing I really planned. It was kind of a spur of the moment thing. So when I started to prepare these 8 colonies here to split, I was surprised at how honeybound they was, and my honey house is not quite ready. I'm having to kind of redo the inside of it to make it more efficient, and I'm working on that now. But anyway, I went ahead and arranged them best I could. Queens was already on the way, so as I started making these up, I put basically I tried to get a frame to a frame and a half total of cap brood in each one of these. And as I done that, I could see right away there wasn't enough young bees in there. A lot of the bees was flying back home. So I didn't quite know what to do about that. Ultimately, what I decided to do was go ahead and finish these the best I could. And then the 8 colonies I had down here, I just simply took and moved them right in the middle of the day. I moved them about 100 yards up that way in the garden. So right here you see the empty row of hive stands where I had one colony there, and then the rest of them down in there, and they're gone. But look carefully above the hood of that truck right there, and you'll see right where I moved them, about 80 yards away. So those foragers flew down in here, come to their empty stands, and then took up with those good smelling nucs. Now that one hive right there is the big swarm I caught about a month ago. My hopes was that the foragers would come down here and find their home was gone and take up with these nucs, and that's precisely what happened. I was really concerned about them balling and killing some of the queens, but obviously it didn't work out that way. So it worked like a charm. I've never thought of doing it that way, but that goes to show you, you know, don't be scared to try things that can kind of make sense in a way. That was a considerable gamble, but I really had no choice without really going into tearing down some of them real tall hives, and I just wasn't really going to do that. So I elected to try this, and it worked out pretty good for me. The negative to it was for about 3 days, I could walk anywhere down here and you'd get stung. I didn't even have to come over here. I could just walk up to my bee truck about 30 yards over there. The next morning I got stung. So the bees was pretty aggressive. They did not like that for a few days, but after the 3rd day they calmed down, and now it's just back to normal. So all the foragers out of those hives has either come down here or lost or died off, and then the new foragers up there, they recognize that as their home, and then these bees recognize this as their home. All these nucs are pretty heavy. Last year I'd done this at the 1st of August, and this year in the middle of June. That's the latest I've ever done one. I've done some in mid-July, so I do believe I get the best performance doing this in the middle of June. I think for me in my area, mid-June is the best time to do these kind of splits. And what I mean by that is they got time to get built up, a pretty good cluster. The queen's still fresh, and then next spring these colonies will come out with a bang, and they'll grow really fast. So I'm right here in the middle of July. I still got a good amount of time. And while I had you on pause a few minutes ago, I went in there and got one of my new nucs that I wax dipped a few weeks ago. And I did build those a little bit wider to have a little more room. I think about 1/2 or 3/4 inches wider than these. And I set one on there to see, and they do overhang just a little bit, but they work perfectly. So I'm gonna go ahead and put those on here in the next day or two and continue to feed. I'll pull a frame of brood up for bait, and I'm gonna try to get 10 frames drawn out, which will mean, and I'm gonna leave them in this configuration because they'll draw it out faster with 2 nucs than they will put them in a 10 frame box. Or at least in my experience, that's consistently what I've seen. And then if they get these drawn out in time, say by mid-September or around the time goldenrod, I'll probably go ahead and put them in a 10 frame box, and I'll be that much ahead. That was an unplanned experiment. Worked out pretty good. Those foragers come down here, those old field bees, and took up with these hives. And also another thing I noticed right off is you could tell which colonies here had the best smelling queen, I guess you could say, because they're the one that had the most bees. And these 5 right here kind of in the front, they initially built up a lot of population within a day and a half. So I kind of went down the line and picked out the 5 weakest ones, and I just simply swapped them right in the middle of the day, and that helped to balance them out. And so the foragers went ahead and repopulated these, and they've all recovered nicely. There was a couple of these, if I hadn't done something like that, they wouldn't have made it. They probably wouldn't 300 bees in a couple of them. That's how bad it was. But they're all queen ride, all got a decent population. There's one that's down a little bit, but if I can get these to draw a foundation and build up into a second nuke, I will, you know, about a month from now, I'll balance them out and try to get their populations pretty equal. Well, this will be some of my new colonies for next year. I want to do a better job of keeping these fed up this time, and also my honey production colonies, and hopefully I'll be able to start out next spring with my entire operation fairly well balanced. But now that I've got this done, you know, it's time to really focus in on honey harvest, getting my mites under control, monitor, treat, and transition to the beekeeper part of the year where you got to get your colonies ready for next year. And in my experience, what you do in late July, especially August, those months are critical to what will happen in the apiary next year for me. So this year, I've had all year to think about it. I'm going to attack this more aggressively this year. I've seen a tremendous difference in, even though I didn't feed it, they was able to gather up enough fall nectar that they all got real heavy, and the other ones was light, and I had to bring them home and feed. There's a huge difference in the production of that yard in terms of honey than they are in the other yards. That is clear evidence to me that it's definitely worth the effort, the expense to get these bees ready here in mid to late summer, ready for 2023. Well, I thank you for joining me for this video today. We'll see you on the next one.